I'm heading out now. I made dinner and put it in the fridge so you can heat it up and eat it, okay? After an early dinner in the evening, I wrapped up the other portion to save for later. This was my husband Victor's dinner. I could just leave the meal out, but that somehow feels lonely. That's why I make it a practice to prepare meals in advance and leave a note when I have night shifts. My name is Kate Smith. I work at a major fast food chain restaurant, doing shift work including night shifts. Shift work can be taxing on the body, but I find fulfillment in my job. On nights when I work, I use more energy than on other days. Therefore, it's necessary that I have a solid meal in the evening to store up energy. Victor works a set schedule from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays. Because our work schedules are different, we seldom have meals together. Sometimes we do eat together, but we mostly eat separately. We don't see each other often, and opportunities for dates are limited. However, we understand each other's work commitments, and the motivation to work hard now to travel to various places in the future keeps us going. When we need to talk or share something, we make time even if it's brief to communicate directly. When we can't speak face to face, I sometimes write notes and leave them on the table in the living room. We haven't set any special rules between us, but we both believe in not keeping things bottled up, so we exchange notes. Ever since we started to exchange notes, the loneliness of not speaking has disappeared, and above all, the warmth felt from the words is comforting. Yesterday, a customer I served praised me a lot and said they'd come again. That's great. My work went smoothly as well yesterday, and I came home feeling good. The meat and potatoes you made were really delicious. I appreciate it. Even after 5 years of marriage, Victor never forgets to express his gratitude after meals. Why do you always make sure to express gratitude? I had asked him once before. If you feel something but don't put it into words, it's as if you don't feel it at all, don't you think? I love and respect that mindset of his. That's why I wanted to express my gratitude too. When I come back from night shifts, I usually fall asleep before Victor wakes up, but that day I waited for him to wake up, quietly watching his sleeping face. When Victor woke up, he was surprised to see me there. I love you. Huh, you weren't sleeping? Why? I wanted to tell you, so I stayed awake. Realizing this, Victor gently hugged me. I felt truly happy. Wanting to express gratitude when Victor wakes up was sparked by a moment at work. Does your husband also have night shifts, Mrs. Smith? No, he has a fixed schedule during weekdays. Isn't it lonely with your times so mismatched? Seeing each other a few times a week would be nice, I guess. Really? Is there even a point to being married then? Aren't you lonely? What about the risk of cheating? Haha. I felt irritated by such unfounded assumptions and comments. That won't happen. Don't be so sure about it. What if you suddenly get divorced? I wondered how someone could say such things without considering other people's feelings. But a slight uncertainty started to grow in the corner of my heart. What if I'm overlooking something? If Victor has any complaints, am I not aware of them? I decided to discuss these comments with Victor. Victor hugged me and gently stroked my head as he reassured me. There's nothing I'm unsatisfied with. I'm happy right now. Let's always stay together, okay? Of course. I once again felt the importance of communication. Thinking about how my days with Victor would continue to pass like this was comforting. One evening, when Victor and I were having dinner together after a long time, his phone rang. Who could it be at this late hour? Mom? Your mother. Maybe something happened. Hurry and answer. Okay. It was unusual for Victor's mother, Susan, to call, and both Victor and I immediately worried about her health. As Victor took the call and listened to his mother, I watched his reaction, and his expression gradually became stern. What? You decided that on your own? Victor continued the conversation with his mother in an unusually sharp tone. Wait a minute. It seemed like the conversation was one-sided, and then she apparently hung up the phone. What happened? According to Victor, renovation work due to a real estate mistake was scheduled at his mother's apartment. Although another residence was offered, his mother refused it and decided to come to our place instead. Victor has an older brother by 5 years who has 3 children and is busy with daily life. His mother had first contacted his brother, but he had declined, saying, "I have my hands full with the kids, so it's difficult for mom to come here." So she decided, "Then I'll go to Victor's place," and called. "What? Does that mean she's coming to our place?" "That's right. Starting tomorrow." Victor looked troubled. Living with my mother-in-law was unexpected, and I felt internally disordered and full of anxiety about what to do. For now, I'll look for a place for mom to live in. I'd appreciate it if you could bear with it for a while. Understood. If there's anything she dislikes, let me know in advance. Thus, we started preparing for this unexpected event of living with my mother-in-law, such as clearing space for her. The next day, I happened to have a day off, so I decided to welcome her. At 8 a.m., the doorbell suddenly rang. "Ha, this early?" When I looked at the monitor, there was Victor's mother, Susan, standing there. "Good morning. Good morning. You don't come out even though I've been ringing the bell, do you?" My mother-in-law said that and entered the house without any hesitation. I felt uneasy about what was to come. My premonition turned out to be right. She lived completely on her own terms, without adjusting to our lifestyle as a couple. I was trying to be positive about it, but honestly, it was quite selfish. She would start eating as soon as dinner was prepared and take a bath immediately after finishing her meal. Of course, the dishes she used were always left on the table. In our home, we shared household chores, but it was clear from the first day that she had no intention of helping. The next day, when I mentioned that dinner might be late because I have work, my mother-in-law visibly showed her displeasure. "I want to eat dinner at 7 p.m. What kind of daughter-in-law doesn't prepare meals at a set time?" Despite being busy with work, I was internally irritated by such comments. It was really unreasonable considering I had already explained that my work schedule might cause irregular meal times. "I will prepare so you can have dinner at 7 p.m. "Oh, okay." After her brief reply, my mother-in-law went back to her room. I prepared to make sure she could have her meal exactly at 7 p.m., readying a simple set of 1 soup and 3 dishes. It was a lot of work, but I thought it was much better than constantly being nagged. This should be fine. After preparing the meal for my mother-in-law before my night shift, I headed to work feeling relieved. However, that feeling was completely overturned when I returned home from the night shift. Exhausted, I entered the living room and found my mother-in-law sitting in a chair. "Ah, good morning, mother." What a leisurely good morning. "What was that dinner? Serving food that isn't freshly made? What kind of thoughtless daughter-in-law are you?" For every complaint I made, she returned twice as many. Unsure how to respond and feeling incapable of dealing with it anymore, tears spontaneously flowed. I eventually decided to tell Victor everything. "Sorry, Victor. I don't know how to deal with your mother anymore." I sent Victor an email explaining the situation and then covered my head with a blanket. I wanted to put some distance between myself and my mother-in-law. "I'll listen to everything about today, so I'll come home right after work ends." Receiving a message from Victor, I finally managed to get some sleep. As planned, Victor came home right after work. "Shall we go out for dinner tonight?" He suggested that, and told my mother-in-law to eat something on her own before taking me out. My mother-in-law was complaining as usual, but I didn't mind because Victor pulled my hand. When Victor heard about the situation with his mother, his face hardened with anger. "I can't forgive her for trampling on your kindness just because she's my parent. Don't worry, I'll talk to her directly when we get back." As Victor said this and stroked my back, his words warmed my heart. A smile naturally came to my face. "Thank you. I'm really sorry, Kate. I hate to see you so troubled. I'll make sure you can always keep smiling." When we returned home, my mother-in-law still looked unsatisfied as she looked at me. "Why do you feed me whatever and go out to eat yourselves? Take me with you next time." With Victor by my side, her words didn't carry the usual force. "Mom, isn't the way you speak to Kate far too harsh? If you're going to speak like that, you might as well leave." Victor said out loud what I'd been thinking, and I was very grateful to him. However, my mother-in-law just calmly drank her coffee and affected. I was just astonished, and Victor continued to speak. Are you listening? Do you have anything to say? This is my son's house, which makes it my house. A daughter-in-law is an outsider, so of course, she should listen to what I say. While placing her teacup on the table with a confident look, I felt frightened. What? This is mine and Kate's house. The outsider here is you, Mom. What are you talking about? This house is in Victor's name, isn't it? It's impossible for a mother to be an outsider. I had been patient for a long time, but I thought it was better to make things clear, so I began to speak. Actually, the house is in my name. My mother-in-law's face stiffened for a moment. Then she suddenly started laughing. Haha, what are you talking about all of a sudden? You don't need to act so deaf. No, I'm being normal. This house is in my name. I continued to calmly convey the truth, holding back my emotions. Stop joking around. There's still time to apologize. I'm not lying. This house is in Kate's name. Victor's calm response suddenly changed my mother-in-law's expression, and her face quickly turned red. Why? How can you say that so calmly? I can't believe you're living in a house under your wife's name. Kate's mother previously owned some real estate and decided to pass it on to Kate. That's why the rent from the tenants here contributes to our income. This was Kate's suggestion. Victor explained the situation to his mother. My mother had been working hard, buying real estate for the future, and saving the rental income for her retirement. When the assets reached a certain level, my mother told me she would transfer them to me, which coincidentally happened around the time I decided to marry. So, I proposed to Victor that we use one of the rooms for ourselves and rent out the rest. Although initially hesitant about the house being in the wife's name rather than the husband's, Victor was pleased with the suggestion and praised me. That's a wonderful idea. How did you come up with that? Saving up for trips and meals together was fun. This is something we decided together, so I don't want you to interfere. If you can't accept that, I want you to leave. I can't believe it. With those words left hanging, my mother-in-law quietly returned to her room. The next day, she continued to stay in her room, and when I returned from work, only the remnants of the meal I had prepared were left on the living room table. Even when Victor came home, there was no change in my mother-in-law's situation. How's my mom doing? She's been in her room the whole time. Hearing that, Victor went to my mother-in-law's room and knocked on the door. Mom, we need to talk. It was as if she had been waiting for someone to call her, and she immediately opened the door. She might have wanted someone to care. Victor pulled out a key from his pocket and handed it to her. What is this? I contacted the real estate agent you turned down before and arranged for a replacement apartment. It's fully furnished and ready to live in right away. I see. Then I'll enjoy living on my own. Leaving those words behind, she quickly packed her things and left. She might have been packing all day. Given how quickly the door opened, she might have been waiting to be asked to stay. Watching her leave, various thoughts crossed my mind, but only I knew my true feelings. I want to continue living with you just like before. I've caused a lot of trouble. Thank you. Thank you for protecting me and caring about me. I look forward to continuing this journey with you. As Victor was about to apologize again, I intentionally interrupted him. There was no need for Victor to apologize. Likewise, I look forward to more time together. Saying this, Victor smiled happily and hugged me. We have our own lives. We have our own rules. No matter what others say, if we are okay with it, that's all that matters. Hey, shall we go on a trip on our next day off? That sounds great. Let's plan where to go. Just imagining a future with this person makes me feel like I can overcome the daily work and challenges. I vowed to myself to do my best tomorrow, too. Now the house is mine. If you have any complaints, let's get a divorce. I felt giddy as Ben happily told me he had changed the house to his name shortly after my father's death. There's no way such a change of ownership could be that easy. I thought Ben might be misunderstanding something. If that's the case, I don't mind getting a divorce, but won't you regret it? Not expecting me to agree to a divorce, Ben exclaimed in surprise. What? There's no way I would regret it. Ben replied with full confidence. Will he truly not regret it? If so, I won't hold back either. If he regrets it later, it's not my concern. I laughed inwardly at Ben's naive thinking. I am Kathy Anderson, a 35-year-old public servant with a hard-working personality. I believe that my current profession as a public servant suits me the most. When I passed the civil service exam, my parents were very happy. It was because I was always told by my father to aim for a stable job as much as possible. If I was asked whether civil service jobs are stable, I'd have to say there's no certainty in modern society. However, at present, there are no major troubles, and I expect to continue working as a public servant. There's a reason why my father recommended a stable job. After graduating from university, he chose to work at a startup. Filled with enthusiasm for his new career, he aimed to improve his skills and jumped into a company with only 10 employees. However, sustaining a business for years is a significant challenge. The company my father joined unfortunately went bankrupt after 2 years. While struggling to find a suitable reemployment, my father decided to start his own business. Lacking experience, he started in the food industry and gradually grew his business. As the number of stores increased, he hired many employees and kept an eye on daily sales and profits. Since most of the stores were operated in renovated vacant houses or owned properties, there was no worry about rent. As a result, as the number of customers increased, the revenue grew, and he built a considerable fortune over 35 years. However, he also experienced many hardships during that process. The instability of a life as an entrepreneur accumulated daily stress. As profits began to rise, people motivated by money gathered, leading to difficulties in human relationships. Sometimes, employees would even take off with the store's funds. Building wealth was not easy. Therefore, I think my father wanted me to avoid the hardships he experienced and wished for a comfortable life for me. I am satisfied with my job as a public servant, a job that suits my nature. While not affluent, I can maintain a normal life without any issues. Hence, I believe stable days like these are the best. I'll be home late tomorrow, so I don't need dinner. That was my husband, Ben, informing me. This wasn't the first time he had said this. After dinner, while I was washing the dishes, I asked while wiping my hands, "Working overtime again? Is the factory that busy?" "It's a busy period right now." Ben works in a semiconductor manufacturing plant on the assembly line. Having worked in this job for 18 years since graduating high school can be extremely challenging, considering you process parts every day for 8 hours straight. It's nothing for me, but for Ben it seems to be easier than using his brain. I can understand since semiconductors have been scarce recently. Must be tough. Yes, so I might be a bit late. Understood. Take care. Lately, it's become common for him to come home late, sometimes not returning until after midnight in the worst case. I can hardly believe he's working this late, so he's probably having a drink somewhere after work. I understand the urge to unwind with alcohol, but I feel the frequency has increased too much. However, it's difficult to say that to Ben. Telling him not to drink when he's exhausted from his daily demanding job might provoke a backlash. Fortunately, his drinking expenses are covered by his own allowance, so it's not a big issue. As I watch Ben head to the bedroom, I roll my shoulders extensively. Lately, my shoulder pain has worsened. Life with Ben is full of mismatches, and it seems like the mental stress is starting to manifest itself physically. I try to tell myself not to overthink. I met Ben during my second year of high school. He was attending a nearby boys' high school and approached me during a cultural festival. Initially hesitant when the younger Ben asked for my contact information, I eventually gave in to his persistent approach. When I asked why he was so interested in someone as plain as me, he shyly admitted that he liked my appearance. On the other hand, I had a rather frivolous impression of Ben at first, so I was quite worried. However, contrary to my expectations, his sincere personality became evident, and I gradually found myself drawn to him. Even after Ben started working post-high school and I became a civil servant following university, he has always been my partner. We got married at 27 but haven't been blessed with children. It may not be possible anymore, but I feel our life together is not bad. As long as I can spend the future with the present Ben, that's enough. He probably feels the same. In the midst of these peaceful yet busy days, an unexpected call came to my phone. Hello? Kathy. Oh, good. You're there. Are you at work? Yes, what's up? A call from my mother during a weekday in the afternoon was unusual, signaling something must have happened. I asked her why she called. We have a problem. Your father suddenly collapsed. And today, we got the results from the tests. He's been diagnosed with colon cancer. Dad has cancer? I can't believe it. The word cancer from my mother left me shocked. We've never had cancer in our family before. But it's true that my father, being a business owner, had neglected his health checkups. So, it's not surprising that the disease was discovered late. I'm telling the truth. And it seems to be quite advanced. That's terrible. But aren't there advanced treatments for cancer these days? Unfortunately, in his case, they said he only has a few months left. A few months? That's unbelievable. It was an unbearable reality. At 60, my father's rapid cancer progression made sense. Due to the late discovery, the cancer was terminal, and despite medical advancements, treatment would be challenging. My mother explained through tears. I understand. I'll return home for a bit. I'll talk to Ben too. That would be helpful, Kathy. My father is an important figure to me. I couldn't just stand by when he's in trouble. Ben would understand. Distracted, I finished my work and headed home. Ben, who had returned home unusually early, noticed my somber demeanor and asked, "What's wrong? You seem down." Ben was enjoying a beer in the living room. I shared everything about my mother's call with Ben and discussed returning to my parents' home for a while. That's worrisome. Understood. Support your father while you're there. Thank you. Sorry for not being able to prepare meals while I'm away. No problem. I've been getting home late from work lately. I'll just eat out in the meantime. But you should have a proper meal once in a while. Don't worry, I'll be careful. Ben listened calmly. Feeling reassured, I started packing for my trip home the next day. As bedtime approached and I was about to head to my room, I heard Ben's voice on the phone from his room. He must be talking to someone. I didn't intend to eavesdrop, but I stopped in my tracks when I caught a snippet of his conversation. It seems he will pass away soon. Can you do something about the matter we discussed earlier? Pass away? Was he talking about my father? Yes, that's right. I understand. Please take care of it once he's gone. It wasn't clear who he was talking to or what the arrangement was, but it was evident that the conversation was about my father's situation. Why use such a term as gone? Ben had never spoken disrespectfully about my father, even if their relationship wasn't especially close. Ben wasn't the type to be indifferent in such a critical situation. Yet, why does it seem like Ben doesn't care about my father? Even though my father is terminally ill, he is still alive, and discussing matters after he is gone with someone else is inappropriate. At that moment, my trust in Ben wavered. Since then, I couldn't shake off my suspicions about Ben. Take care, Ben said cheerfully as he saw me off, but I couldn't stop thinking about his phone conversation on my way home. It seemed like he was plotting something. If it's related to my father, it must be about money. I never told Ben about the extent of my father's wealth. I felt discussing finances might lead to problems, so I decided we could discuss inheritance when the time came. At this stage, I didn't see the necessity to talk about it. I wasn't hiding it. I just thought it was premature. But what if Ben knew about my father's wealth and was targeting it? I shouldn't think about it too much. While trying to dispel these negative thoughts, I spent time supporting my father and enjoying pleasant conversations. I'm grateful, Kathy, Mom. I'm a lucky man. You don't have to be so formal. It's too early to be thankful. We tried to maintain a cheerful atmosphere while looking at my father's calm smile. The last moments with my father ended 3 months later. Neither my mother nor I were fully prepared for the premature goodbye. During the funeral, I was in a daze, struggling to accept the reality that my father was no longer in this world. On the other hand, Ben was oddly cheerful, which felt unsettling to me. It wasn't until a week after the funeral, as I was drinking alone in the living room, that Ben approached and said, "The hassle is finally over." Crossing his arms and clasping his hands behind his head, he spoke with a cold gaze. "Hassle? Yes, exactly. I was hoping your father would kick the bucket a bit sooner. But even after that, there were still procedures like the funeral to deal with, so it was a pain in the butt." "How can you say that? Someone has died, my father at that. How can you talk like that?" I couldn't help but retort to Ben's astonishing statement. It became clear that Ben had actually wished for my father's early death. I remembered the phone conversation about my father. What were Ben's true intentions? When can we receive the inheritance? Your family is quite wealthy, right? I know there's a substantial fortune to be had. At that moment, I understood what Ben had been aiming for. I never imagined Ben would have his eyes on my family's wealth. I had never discussed my family's financial situation with Ben. However, it seems Ben knew that my father had substantial assets. "You look like you're wondering how I knew." I can understand. My family was always poor. Securing daily meals was a struggle. On the other hand, I heard your family was wealthy and your parents often went on trips. Just that fact alone made it clear your family was affluent. That's why I made some inquiries beforehand. Inquiries? With whom? Ben used the word inquiries after guessing my family's financial situation. The day Ben was on the phone in the bedroom flashed through my mind, and I wondered if that was the inquiry he mentioned. I asked a real estate lawyer acquaintance about the old man's inheritance. "I'm going to make sure to receive the inheritance properly." "What?" I was shocked that he had discussed the inheritance with someone else without my consent, and doing so while my father was still alive. At that moment, I began to doubt whether the person in front of me was truly my husband. "You'll get a response soon. Just wait." With that, Ben returned to the bedroom. He was probably going to contact that lawyer again. I was just astonished by his unbelievable actions. Why would he investigate my family's inheritance on his own? Is there any other spouse who would do such a thing? Inheritance is a matter our family should discuss, not for Ben to get involved in. My trust in his actions wavered, and I started avoiding conversations with him. We spent some time without speaking, but the situation changed drastically a month later. Putting aside Ben's previous comments on inheritance, the estate was formally transferred to my mother and me. I inherited my father's mansion worth $2 million and felt the weight of this asset. I had no intention of moving into the mansion right away, and it seemed a waste to just leave it unused. While I was contemplating whether to turn it into a vacation home or sell it, Ben suddenly spoke to me after not having exchanged words for days. "Hey, Kathy, how are you doing?" How ironic, considering we lived under the same roof. Ignoring his words, I reached for a book nearby, but he continued. "Listen, I've changed the ownership of the mansion you inherited to my name." I stopped reading and stared at him in astonishment. "What are you talking about?" "Yeah, I asked that real estate lawyer to proceed with the title transfer." "You did a title transfer, really?" "Yes, really." I was speechless. Not only did he do it behind my back, I also had a problem with the lawyer involved. Now the house is mine. If you have a problem with that, we can get a divorce. And I'll be giving the house to my family. My brother has been wanting a larger house, so I want to make him happy. Just after my father's death, Ben was happily talking about changing the house to his name, and I felt dizzy. It seemed unlikely that a title transfer could be done so easily. And for his family to move in? I thought Ben might be misunderstanding something but was at a loss for words. His actions infuriated me, and I couldn't let this go. It would be better to plan and retaliate rather than confront him with words. If that's the case, I don't mind getting a divorce, but won't you regret it? Ben seemed surprised that I would accept a divorce so readily. Regret? There's no way I would. Ben replied with full confidence. Will he truly not regret it? If so, I won't hold back either. If he regrets it later, that's his problem. I smirked inwardly at Ben's naivety. I decided to use every means possible to gather information about Ben's personal life. I decided to take a vacation and inspect Ben's room while he was at work. Ben's room was a mess, with various items scattered all over the floor. There, I found something and quietly slipped it into my pocket. Next, I reached for the computer on Ben's desk and launched the messaging app. I see, this person is the real estate lawyer dealing with legal issues. The messages exchanged with James Owen were appalling. They were mostly about money. The discussions were about how to illicitly acquire funds. I sighed in surprise. It seemed pitiful that Ben was following such a person's instructions. After leaving the room, I headed to a certain location. After repeating tiring tasks, I went to confirm Ben's greed. The deeper I investigated, the more I realized what kind of person I've actually been living with. That sent a chill down my spine. After concluding the investigation about Ben and feeling completely detached, I decided to file for divorce. My marriage with Ben ended legally once the divorce papers got granted at the municipal office. It was an unexpected separation, but I no longer had any affection towards Ben, who disdained my father. The Ben I knew was nowhere to be found. The investigation revealed Ben to be an unbelievable person. After submitting the divorce papers, the house was no longer mine. In fact, the house was purchased in Ben's name from the beginning, with a mortgage taken out. I considered moving out, but Ben did not return to the house afterward. He's probably living in the mansion I inherited. He might be living comfortably now, but how long will that happiness last? I calmly thought about Ben's future. 3 days later, Ben finally appeared before me. "Kathy, has the divorce already been granted?" he asked anxiously as he entered through the front door. He came back suddenly and asked an impertinent question, to which I responded, "What? So, we're divorced, right?" Ben exclaimed loudly. He seemed to be in extreme distress. "Yes, it was granted 3 days ago. So, we are now strangers to each other." What does that mean?" Disappointment gradually appeared on Ben's face. Despite his own desire for divorce, I wished he wouldn't adopt a blaming attitude. "Why would you make such a unilateral decision? Divorce, really? Unilateral? You're the one who wanted a divorce, remember? What are you talking about now?" Ben fell silent at my logical response. His sudden issue with the divorce was clear to me. "Kathy, please, let's start over. Otherwise, I'll." Ben knelt down, looking dejected. While feeling sorry for him, I asked, "Did something happen?" I had a rough idea of what was going on, but decided to delve deeper. "Just now, debt collectors came looking for me. I tried contacting James Owen, but he seems to have changed his phone number and I can't get through. I sent an email but got no response. It looks like I've been deceived by him." James Owen was that self-proclaimed real estate lawyer. While Ben's explanation was fragmented, I grasped the gist of the situation. It became clear what Ben had been involved in when I searched through his room. "It seems you were obsessed with gambling. There were gambling receipts scattered all over your room. I also investigated your visits to the local casino. You've been going there for almost a year, right? Is that why you ran out of funds? Checking our joint bank account, I noticed gradual withdrawals that I couldn't recall, and it turned out you were also taking money from our savings. Is that why you were duped by that real estate lawyer?" Exactly. Ben had been secretly spending his days gambling without my knowledge. The reason for his late returns was not due to drinking parties but because of gambling. When the inheritance from my father came up, it must have seemed like an opportunity for him. He had consulted with the so-called real estate lawyer Owen on how to get his hands on the inheritance. Yes, that's right. I know gambling is wrong, but I was deceived by that person. The grand mansion that Kathy inherited didn't become mine. I'll go bankrupt at this rate. That would be sad, right? That's why I'm asking for help. How ironic of him to propose divorce only to beg for reconciliation later. I felt contempt rather than anger for the pitiful behavior of my former partner. Has he forgotten that he secretly wished for my father's death and insulted him? I couldn't even consider that man as my ex-husband. What are you talking about? You're the problem, aren't you? Sympathy. I have no such feelings for you. After all, getting deceived was also due to your carelessness. The real estate inherited from my father is in my name and not subject to division. Changing its ownership without consent is impossible. Yet, you were naive enough to get deceived by James Owen, and now you come asking for help? I will never forgive you, not in a lifetime. Seeing my face filled with anger, Ben got scared. I opened the front door, leaving him aside. If you don't mind, I will move to the luxurious house I inherited from my father. As for you, try to manage your life in this house. Oh, and don't forget about the loan repayment. Good luck. Wait, despite his call from behind, I coldly left him behind and walked away with dignity. 7 days later, I was surprised by an unexpected call. Seeing the name displayed on the screen, I couldn't believe my eyes. It was Ben's mother. I answered the phone, anxious that she might criticize me for the divorce. However, the words I heard were completely unexpected and surprising. Kathy, I'm truly sorry. My son seems to have committed something unforgivable towards you. I'm honestly at a loss for words on how to apologize. Her voice was filled with deep regret and apology. I responded with some confusion. No, there's no need for an apology. Please don't worry about it. But she didn't accept my words. No, I can't just leave things as they are. I heard my son is trying to have you shoulder his debt repayments, and I'm both shocked and profoundly disappointed. We plan to give him strict guidance at home from now on. I've warned him to be prepared for a tough time. We won't let him gamble ever again, and we'll teach him the importance of money management. For a while, he'll have to take on all responsibilities for work and home life on his own, she expressed her firm resolve. Ben's mother felt strong anger towards her son's inappropriate actions, and he was about to face some harsh days, she passionately explained. I secretly hoped to see how Ben would confront this, feeling this was a just retribution for him, who scorned my father and tried to swindle away the property I cherished. I had no ounce of sympathy for him. I genuinely hoped he would dedicate himself to repaying his debts. And as planned, I moved to the magnificent mansion I inherited from my father. This new home, furnished and requiring no additional purchases, filled me with a profound sense of satisfaction for the new life ahead. Although I left behind clothes and other small items at the old house, the excitement for the liberating life ahead made me unstoppable. The new residence was spacious, an extravagance for one person. Currently, I'm not keen on remarrying. However, if fate smiles at me and I meet a soulmate again, I'll invite that special person to this expansive living space. Imagining the expression on the future spouse's face as they enter this house brought a smile to mine. This hopeful anticipation is a significant light of hope for me now. And I sincerely say, thank you, Dad. This valuable house, his last gift, is more than a physical space. It's the foundation for starting a new life, a place that connects me to the past and steps into the future.
My name is Allison. I have been married to my husband, David, for 7 years, and we have a lovely daughter, Christina. We were living happily together. In the beginning of our marriage, we both harbored dreams and believed that the happy days would continue forever. David was passionate about his work and a kind person who cared deeply for his family. We envisioned our future together, filled with hope every day. The first step of marriage was like a dream come true. On our wedding day, surrounded by many friends and family, we exchanged our vows with joyful smiles. Holding David's hand, I was excited about the new life that was about to begin. During our honeymoon in Hawaii, we talked about our future plans and spent a wonderful time together. The first few years of our marriage were truly dreamlike. We would go out as a family on weekends and plan special events to enjoy. When Christina was born, David was overjoyed, and it was evident he felt the responsibilities of fatherhood. I loved cooking and found joy in preparing delicious meals for my family. Our home was filled with love and smiles. As a new member of our family, Christina brought even more joy to our lives. Holding her tiny hands, we took our first steps as a new family. David felt the responsibilities of fatherhood, and was even more dedicated to his work. I was proud of him and continued to devote myself to our family every day. Right after Christina was born, we worked together to adjust to our new life. We supported each other, sharing the joys and challenges of parenting. Every time we witnessed Christina's first smile or her first steps, we felt a deep bond. Our married life was going well, and our bond as a family was strengthening. David achieved success at work, and by keeping a strong home, our house became a stable and happy place. Christina grew healthily, and days of family smiles continued. We believed this happiness would last forever. However, as time passed, changes gradually began to occur. David's job became busier, and he spent less time at home. I was overwhelmed with caring for Christina, making it difficult to spend time with David. At first it was just small things, but gradually, a gap began to form between us. Still, I wanted to protect our family's happiness and continued to make efforts. Despite being busy with daily chores and childcare, I waited for David's return and kept supporting him. Our married life continued despite the difficulties. Yet I did not know that this peace would not last long. One night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on my marriage with David. Happy memories came to mind, but they were shadowed by a sense of unease. David had been coming home late recently, and our conversations had diminished. I wanted to know what was happening, but I lacked the courage to ask. It was around the time Christina turned 4 that a significant turning point in our marriage approached. As she grew up, the challenges of parenting increased. Christina was very curious and sometimes hard to manage. I was exhausted from raising her alone and increasingly sought David's help. From that time, our life gradually began to fall apart. David's attitude turned cold, and his words to Christina became harsher. I struggled to do something for our family, but gradually I was wearing out. I had no idea that the events about to unfold would significantly shake our marriage. They were things that encompassed the dream-filled days of early marriage to the gap that developed between us over time, the anxiety about these changes and the effort to overcome them. Perhaps our married life was a preparation period for the trials that were to come. I decided to renew my effort to repair our relationship with David and regain a happy family life with Christina. Yet, reality was tougher than expected, and we faced further trials. Nevertheless, I was determined to face any difficulties to protect my family. As our new life began, our future was a mix of hope and anxiety, but I vowed to do my best for my family. When Christina was born, we took our first steps as a new family. Holding her little hand, we felt the responsibilities and joys of parenthood. David played his role as a father well, taking the initiative to change diapers and feed milk in the middle of the night. I appreciated his actions, and I believed our family would continue to be happy. The first few months involved sleepless nights due to Christina's crying and frequent breastfeeding, but watching her grow was my greatest joy. Her first smile, her first rollover, her first words, everything was fresh and precious to us. David also rejoiced at each milestone, and it felt like our bond was getting stronger. However, the reality of parenting gradually weighed on us. As Christina grew, her curiosity and energy increased, and it became harder to take my eyes off her. Especially when she started walking, the house was always messy, and I spent all day cleaning and caring. David's work also got busier, and he spent less time at home. I was exhausted from handling childcare and housework alone, and gradually, stress built up. When David came home from work, he was too tired, and our conversations decreased. I wanted him to help more with parenting, but I understood his busyness and couldn't say much. Yet my dissatisfaction grew, and it began to show in my attitude. One day, when Christina had a fever, I nursed her alone. David couldn't come home from work, and I felt a strong sense of dissatisfaction and loneliness as I stayed by her side all night. When David came home the next morning, I asked him if he could help more with the parenting. However, he responded with a tired look, saying, "I'm busy with work." Try to understand more. Those words made me burst into tears. I tried several times to communicate the difficulties of parenting to David, but his response was always cold, and a significant gap developed between us. I was doing my best to raise Christina and take care of my family, but it felt unrewarded, and I felt deeply saddened. Moreover, as Christina grew, her curiosity only increased, making parenting even more challenging. She began to have her own opinions and sometimes did not listen. I was doing my best to raise her, but the lack of cooperation from David became increasingly stressful. The difficulties of parenting also affected our marital relationship. I began to feel a distance from David, and my trust in him started to waver. His cold attitude and harsh words became a major stress for me, and I became increasingly anxious about our family's future. Still, I continued to do my best out of a desire to protect my family. Watching Christina grow, I resolved to do the best for her. However, the gap with David deepened, and my efforts were nearing their limit. The new life that began with Christina's birth brought us much joy, but it also brought numerous trials. Facing the difficulties of parenting and changes in our marital relationship, I continued to search for what I could do for my family. And the impact of this challenging situation on our married life gradually became clear. Since Christina turned 4, David's attitude had become increasingly colder, and the atmosphere at home worsened. Not only was he coming home later, but he was also mostly silent when at home, and his verbal abuse towards Christina increased. It was not uncommon for him to yell. What kind of attitude is that towards a father? When Christina spoke to him. One day, Christina asked tearfully, "Dad, why do you ignore me?" David coldly replied, "Don't do things that make you ignored." Christina burst into tears, and I hugged her to comfort her, but a deep sadness and anxiety spread in my heart. I asked David, "Can't you be a little kinder?" But his reply was cold. "Why do I have to make the effort? It should be Christina who comes to me." I was at a loss for words. David's attitude escalated, and his relationship with Christina continued to deteriorate. Every time Christina tried to talk to him, he ignored her, and when he felt irritated by her attitude, he would say, "You're really annoying. Just go throw her in the mountains." I was shocked by those words and couldn't even tell if he was serious. I repeatedly tried to talk with David, but his response was cold. "I don't want to come home anymore," he often said. Using work stress as an excuse, he continued to stay out late, and our family was gradually facing a crisis. I was exhausted raising Christina alone and lost hope in repairing my relationship with David. David's verbal abuse and neglect left deep scars on Christina's heart. She started to avoid her father and expressed anxiety to me. Our home was far from the happy days we once knew. My love for David was fading, and I lost hope for our future together. One evening, when David came home, I mustered the courage to talk to him. "David, if we don't do something about our relationship, it's really going to fall apart. Let's discuss and solve this," I pleaded. However, his response was unchanged. "There's nothing to talk about. You always say we should talk, and that's why I don't want to come home," he coldly said, leaving me feeling desperate. During this time, our family relationship became increasingly tense. David's verbal abuse and neglect left deep wounds in our hearts, and Christina became more unstable. I continued to try to talk to David, determined to protect Christina, but my efforts often ended in failure. Afterward, David continued to stay out more, and our relationship grew colder. My trust and love for David gradually faded. Our marriage seemed irreparable, and our family bond felt completely broken. In the midst of these misunderstandings, our relationship continued to worsen. The crisis that had struck our family would soon create even more turmoil. David's verbal abuse and neglect increased, and he gradually stopped coming home. He made excuses like work is busy and started staying out several nights a week. I was clueless about what was happening and spent my days in anxiety. One day, I directly questioned David, "Why don't you come home?" "I understand work, but Christina is lonely, and I'm worried too," I pleaded. But David's reply was cold. "Christina is too noisy, and it stresses me out. I can't concentrate on work," he said, leaving me shocked. "Don't say that. Christina just wants to be loved by you. Besides, she's already asleep by the time you come home," I retorted. But David's attitude didn't change. "Shut up. It's not just Christina you're annoying too." He snapped and went to take a shower, not listening to what I had to say. David continued to stay out, and our relationship further deteriorated. He said, "It's a pain to talk," and showed no interest in our marriage. I waited for him to come home, spending lonely days with Christina. As David's attitude grew colder, doubts started to creep into my mind. Was David really just busy with work, or was there something else going on? These doubts slowly turned into certainty, and I felt he was hiding something. Then, after David had continued to stay out, he suddenly made a new proposal. "Let's build a house," he said. I was surprised, but I held on to the hope that something might change with his suggestion. "Why the sudden idea?" I asked, and David explained, "You like cooking, right? So a bigger kitchen would be better. Plus, Christina is growing up, and the current house is inconvenient." I found a bit of hope in his words. Perhaps a new house could be a turning point for our relationship. "Are you really thinking about the family?" I asked, and David replied, "Of course. I want the family to be more comfortable." His words made me feel a bit warm inside, and I decided to try trusting him again. I was happy that he was trying to do something for the family. Maybe this would be the start of repairing our relationship. The design of the new house progressed smoothly. I enjoyed thinking about the kitchen, living room, and Christina's room, and my heart gradually lightened. David also actively participated in the design, and for the first time in a while, we worked together towards a common goal. I believed this would be our new start. As the house design progressed, David began to spend more time at home. We chose furniture and interior together, and moments of feeling our family bond again increased. Christina was also looking forward to the new house, and I felt like there was a glimmer of light coming into our relationship. As the completion of the new house approached, our relationship was once again filled with tension. The new house we had built for the family was about to become a place marking the end of our marriage, something I was unaware of at the time. Although I accepted the proposal for the new house, a deep chasm still remained between us. David continued to stay out, and when he was home, he hardly spoke. Our conversations dwindled, and our marital relationship became icy. One evening, I gathered the courage to talk to David. "Hey David, I feel like our relationship isn't working lately. If there's a problem, I want to solve it together," I said. David paused for a moment, but then coldly replied, "There's nothing to talk about." I was deeply hurt by those words. I just wanted to protect my family, but I realized that it was becoming a burden for David. The doubt grew stronger that there was no love or trust left between us. As David continued to stay out more, I began to distrust his actions. Wondering where he was and who he was with, anxiety and suspicion only grew. I lacked the courage to confront him and spent my days waiting silently for his return. Meanwhile, Christina was also sensitive to her father's attitude. She started asking me more often, "Why doesn't Dad come home each time?" I had to say, "Dad is busy with work," which pained me. Lying to Christina's innocent eyes wore me down, and my heart grew increasingly weary. One day, I told David, "We need to do something about our relationship. It's really going to fall apart." "For Christina's sake and for us, let's talk," David replied. "If you want to talk so much, it's best if we live apart." David's words left me stunned. I had not realized how broken our relationship had become. His words felt like the final blow to me. I could no longer understand whether he truly loved his family or if he had lost all affection. Shocked by David's words, I suffered from sleepless nights and lost my appetite. I kept telling myself that I couldn't go on like this, but I was unable to accept the reality. While I strongly wished to restore our bond as a family, David's cold demeanor left me feeling broken day after day. Meanwhile, Christina was also troubled by her father's absence. She often woke up crying at night, asking, "Where is Daddy?" "I miss him," I comforted her by saying, "Daddy is just busy with work," but inside, I felt the same loneliness and anxiety. One day, Christina showed me a drawing from kindergarten. It depicted a smiling me and Christina, with David looking unhappy. "Why does Daddy look like this?" I asked her. She replied, "Because Daddy is always angry." Her words pained my heart. I felt deeply how David's behavior was affecting Christina. Determined to try talking to David again, I waited for him to come home and stayed up late into the night. When he arrived, I said, "Let's seriously discuss how we can repair our relationship." However, his reply was unchanged. "There's nothing left to talk about." He snapped coldly. His words left me feeling desperate. The reality that our relationship might be irreparable became increasingly clear. Communication with David ceased completely, and we lived like strangers under the same roof. Realizing I could no longer rely on David, I started to think about a new life for Christina and myself. Despite the pain of our estranged and chilled relationship, I resolved to move forward. This crisis had become a significant turning point in my life. As the completion of the new house approached, I also felt uneasy about David's sudden suggestion to build it. Was it really for the family, or was there another reason? My doubts lingered, but I told myself to keep moving forward for my family's sake. Our lives changed too. David became busier again, and the days he did not return home increased. Whether he was truly busy with work or there was another reason, my anxiety resurfaced. One day, David suddenly declared, "When the new house is finished, I'll sleep in the children's room." "You and Christina sleep in the bedroom." Surprised, I asked, "Why?" But he insisted, "Once I've said something, I don't change it," and cold air flowed between us again. David had once promised, "Even when we have kids, we'll always sleep together every day." Now, the idea of sleeping in separate rooms made me profoundly sad. I felt that his feelings had completely drifted away, and my heart was engulfed in despair. During the design phase of the new house, both David and I had tried our best for the family. He carefully thought about the kitchen size, living room arrangement, and how everyone could be comfortable. I appreciated his efforts and felt our family bond strengthening again. However, when it came time to choose furniture, I realized how different his tastes were from mine. The furniture and decorations he chose were oddly whimsical, far from my preference for a calm, wood-toned ambience. His choices seemed like something out of a fantasy world. "Whose taste is this?" I asked, and although he said, "It's my taste," I felt a disconnect. It was hard to believe he liked such whimsical things. Still, I couldn't give up hope that something might change with the move to the new house, so I accepted his choices. As the completion of the new house drew near, we were busy preparing, yet filled with anticipation. Choosing new furniture and preparing for the move brought us together as a family for the first time in a long while. Christina was especially excited about her new room, choosing her favorite colors and designs enthusiastically. "Mama, this bed is cute." "Let's put a teddy bear here," Christina said, her eyes sparkling. Her smile healed my heart, and I hoped we might still restore our family bond. David, too, showed a gentle expression for the first time in a while as we chose furniture together. Preparing the new house felt like a fun game. We all cooperated as a family, and little by little, our new life began to take shape. Occasionally, David showed interest, suggesting, "What shall we put in this room?" It seemed the icy atmosphere between us thawed slightly. While working on the new kitchen's design, I rediscovered my passion for cooking. "Let's make delicious meals in this spacious kitchen." Christina can enjoy baking with me, I thought, enjoying planning the kitchen layout. David's smile when he said, "I'm looking forward to your cooking," was a significant encouragement to me. As the move to the new house approached, we became busier. Packing, arranging the move, and preparing for the new life occupied us, but we enjoyed the process. Christina dreamily planned what to do in the new house, and smiles returned to our family for the first time in a long while. On moving day, we stepped into the new house. The spacious living room, Christina's cute room, and the large kitchen I had dreamed of. Everything was new, and we felt hopeful about the life that was about to start. We looked forward to living in the new house, ready to make a fresh start as a family. However, contrary to our expectations, reality soon cast a dark shadow again. David became busier and started staying out more. Whether he was really busy with work or there was another reason, my anxiety returned. But for now, I told myself to keep moving forward for the sake of the family. As our new life began, we gradually adjusted to the new environment. Christina started at a new school and made new friends. I enjoyed cooking in the new kitchen, finding joy in preparing delicious meals for my family. David seemed to try to cherish time with the family despite his busy schedule. At the same time, we faced unexpected difficulties. David began staying out again, and his demeanor turned cold once more. I felt lonely again, and Christina became anxious about her father's absence. The new house was supposed to bring us new hope, but that hope gradually faded. Amid these challenges, I told myself I had to be strong for Christina. I was determined to face any difficulty for her sake. The new house was supposed to be a fresh start for us, a place to find new hope. However, reality was harsh, and our family was soon faced with significant turmoil. Yet, I held a firm resolve to carve out a new future with Christina. Though many challenges remained in our lives, I believed we, as a mother and daughter, had the strength to overcome them. As we settled into the new house, I renewed my commitment to move forward with all my might, hoping it would bring light to our future. Several weeks after moving into our new house, we were gradually getting used to the new environment. Christina enjoyed her new room, and I once again found joy in cooking in the spacious kitchen. However, I still felt uneasy about David's behavior. Our relationship remained cold. He continued to claim he was busy with work, and there were many days he did not come home. Even when he did come home from work, he would immediately seclude himself in another room, spending very little time with us. I repeatedly tried to discuss with David the importance of spending more family time together, but his response was always the same. "I'm busy with work. I'm working for the family, so try to understand," he would say coldly. These words often made me feel like my heart was about to break. Even after moving to the new house, David's behavior did not change. In fact, the days he did not come home increased, and our relationship further deteriorated. I increasingly harbored suspicions about him, wondering whether he really was working for the family or if there was another reason. Amid this, I reminded myself that I had to be strong for David. I was determined to face any difficulties for her sake. The new house was supposed to be a fresh start for us, a place to find new hope. However, reality was harsh, and our family faced significant turmoil once again. One night, David suddenly told me he needed to talk. We sat in the living room, and he began to speak with a serious expression. "Allison, listen. I have been hiding something from you," he said. My heart raced and anxiety washed over me. "In fact, I have another woman, and I have a child with her," he continued. The moment I heard those words, my mind went blank. "What are you talking about? Are you lying?" I demanded, but David's expression was deadly serious. "I have been in a relationship with her for 3 years, and we have a child together. That's why I built this new house, to live with her and their child," David explained calmly. I was stunned and lost for words. "Why did you keep this from us?" I asked tearfully, but David retorted, "I couldn't tell you. She is special to me." David's affair was completely unexpected. The reason he had not been coming home became clear, and my suspicions turned into certainty. "How could you betray our family like this?" I asked tearfully, but David bluntly said, "You didn't support me." His words deeply wounded me. I had tried my best to support him and protect our family, but it seemed he had not perceived any of it. David said, "Let's get a divorce. You two can't live here anymore, so get out," his words shattering my heart. Adding insult to injury, David's mother arrived at our house at just the right moment. She had already met David's girlfriend and sided with her son, telling me to leave because he was getting a younger wife. Christina could not hide her shock and sadness. She tearfully asked, "Dad, Grandma, why are you saying such things?" But David ignored her. Our family disintegrated in an instant, and I was at a loss. "What are we going to do now?" I asked, but David coldly replied, "I'm going to start a new family with her. You two are no longer needed." His words deeply hurt me, but at the same time, they solidified my resolve. I realized I had no choice but to start a new life with Christina. That night, Christina and I cried together. Holding her, I felt overwhelmed by anxiety and sadness about our future. However, I told myself that I had to be strong for her. The next day, I informed David that I was moving forward with the divorce proceedings. "I think our relationship is irreparable. So let's get a divorce," I said. David coldly replied, "That's wise," and we officially began the divorce process. This event was a profound shock to our family, but I was determined to start walking towards a new future with Christina. David's betrayal deeply wounded me, but I needed to overcome this experience and become stronger. With the start of our new life, our future was uncertain but also held new hope. I resolved to face forward and walk with Christina, finding the strength to overcome this trial. The decision to divorce brought new hope to my heart. I vowed to do my best to build a happy life with Christina, despite never being able to forget the past with David. Overcoming it and moving forward was crucial for us. Although the new house was supposed to be a place for us to make a fresh start, it became a symbol of betrayal and despair. However, I embraced the determination to carve out a new future with Christina. I made it a point to cherish every day. Seeing Christina's smile made me feel like I could overcome any difficulty. Welcoming new days together allowed us to gradually start walking forward more positively. David's betrayal deeply hurt me, but overcoming it, I was prepared to do everything necessary to build a new future. One morning, after dropping Christina off at kindergarten, I stopped by a cafe alone. I hoped to find some peace in the quiet place. However, the music playing in the cafe and the cheerful conversations around me only intensified my feeling of loneliness. I took a sip of coffee and took a deep breath. I realized I needed to seriously think about the future. As the divorce proceedings with David progressed, I often questioned myself in my heart. Is this really okay? Can our family never return to what it was? But witnessing David's cold attitude and his attachment to his affair partner, my resolve remained unshaken. I was determined to move forward, overcoming his betrayal to build a new future. Days passed since David's confession. My heart was still wounded, and I lived in a state of confusion. However, I had Christina. While I felt nearly crushed by the weight of reality, I knew I had to be strong for her. I couldn't fully explain the situation to Christina yet, but she sensed that something had changed. "Mom, why aren't you and Dad together?" she asked sadly. "Christina, Mom and Dad have decided to go our separate ways. But Mom will always be with you," I told her. Tears welled up in her eyes, and my heart tightened. Our lives gradually transformed into a new shape. At first, I felt disoriented and lonely with the changes, but we slowly adapted to the new routine. Christina, too, made an effort to live strongly, staying close to me. One day, Christina asked me, "Mom, what will happen to us now?" I held her hand tightly and answered, "We will always be together. Mom will protect you, so don't worry." Christina smiled reassuringly at those words. Seeing her smile, I renewed my resolve to live strongly for her. As we began our new life, I felt there were still many challenges ahead for our future. However, I believed that Christina and I had the strength to overcome these challenges. I made a promise to myself that we would continue to live strongly for our happiness. As the divorce proceedings progressed, I endured each day. With David's decision to choose a new family, it felt like I had lost everything we had built together. The happy days we once enjoyed became a thing of the past, and I was forced to face a new reality. Discussions with the lawyer were conducted calmly and methodically. During negotiations about asset division, child support, and visitation rights, David never once softened his cold demeanor. His desire to finalize things quickly made me painfully aware that his heart had completely turned away from us. We had built many memories and assets through our marriage. However, with the divorce, I faced the reality of having to let go of most of these. The house we had lived in had to be given up for David and his new family. I needed to find a new home and began preparing for a new life with Christina. Throughout this process, I felt the support of many friends and family members. They encouraged me and supported the new life I was building with Christina. Yet I still felt a profound sense of loss and loneliness deep inside. The complete end of my relationship with David made me feel like I had lost a part of myself. One day, the final discussion with the lawyer took place. We met to sign the divorce agreement. David signed the documents indifferently, emotionless throughout. Watching him, I questioned whether he had ever truly loved our family. However, I knew dwelling on such thoughts was pointless. After signing, David said, This is it." Then those words caused me a sharp pain as if my chest was being squeezed. "Yes, this is the end," I replied, trying to remain composed, but tears were welling up inside me. The moment our marriage officially ended, I felt a profound sense of loss. When I returned home, Christina was waiting for me. Seeing her innocent smile, I managed to muster some strength. I reaffirmed my resolve to be strong for her. Protecting her and building a new life became my mission. With the divorce procedures complete, Christina and I were ready to start anew. Though it felt like I had lost everything, my grandfather came to visit us, offering his support. My grandfather, the founder of a major corporation and a man I deeply respected, seemed like a revelation to us. He was aware of our situation and offered his help. "Allison, Christina, don't worry, I will support you fully," he said, embracing us firmly. First, he made arrangements for our new residence, securing a top-tier apartment to ensure we could live comfortably. Christina was thrilled with her new room, and we slowly adjusted to our new life. But my grandfather's help didn't end there. He also decided to directly confront David. As a major shareholder in the company David worked for, my grandfather used his influence to change how David was treated. One day, he summoned us to meet with David. "What you've done to Allison and Christina is unforgivable. However, you must not forget your responsibilities as a family," he sternly told David. David, pale-faced, listened intently to my grandfather's words. My grandfather demanded that David sign documents for his resignation, along with agreements for alimony and child support. David initially resisted, but eventually signed under my grandfather's formidable presence. This intervention drastically changed our lives. Furthermore, my grandfather provided us with a substantial amount of assets to ensure we would not face financial difficulties. With this funding, I was able to start my own business. Determined to succeed on my own, I wanted to make Christina proud. My new business grew successfully, and I became able to stand on my own feet. Christina made new friends at school and enjoyed her days. Our life gradually stabilized, and we began to look toward the future with renewed hope. Thanks to my grandfather's love and support, we were able to recover fully. His assistance was invaluable to us, and I felt immense gratitude toward him. With my grandfather's help, we then moved to our new apartment and started a new chapter. Initially filled with trepidation and uncertainty, we were now free from the anxiety and hardships of the past. David quickly adapted to her new environment, enjoying each day. I, too, felt ready to take a new step forward. Keeping busy helped me heal from past wounds gradually. While I could not forget my memories with David, I gained the strength to move beyond them. One day, Christina asked me, "Mom, can we be even happier from now on?" Inspired by her words, I responded with conviction, "Of course, we will be happier and happier." Her smile was my greatest motivation, and we were able to look forward positively. Although the divorce from David was a painful experience, it allowed me to discover a new version of myself. Christina and I strengthened our bond and resolved to walk through life together. As we began our new life, we could look forward to a hopeful future. The moment I felt I had lost everything turned out to be the first step toward a new beginning. I will cherish the days spent smiling with Christina, believing in a future waiting for us. We took each step forward together. On the first weekend after we moved, Christina and I visited a park near our new home. With its spacious playground and beautiful flower beds, Christina ran around with excitement. "Mom, I love it here," she said joyfully. Seeing her smile, I felt truly relieved. It was heartwarming to see her enjoying and accepting her new surroundings. In our new life, I also dedicated myself to my work. With support from my grandfather, I was able to start my own business. Although it was a new challenge filled with uncertainty, my days were fulfilling. I met many colleagues in my new work environment who supported and helped me grow. Christina also made many friends at her new school and was having fun. Watching her grow was my greatest joy. One day she told me about something she learned at school, and her pure smile gave me courage. For Christina, I felt I could overcome any difficulty. Our new life was progressing smoothly, though challenges were certainly present. After the divorce, I often felt the heavy responsibility of raising Christina alone. However, with the support of my grandfather and new friends, I was able to overcome these challenges. My grandfather regularly visited us. His presence was a great encouragement, and his love and support sustained our lives. One day he told me, "Allison, you are doing really well. We are always proud of you." Those words made me tear up. I was filled with gratitude for how his love had strengthened us. One evening, while enjoying dinner with Christina, she suddenly asked, "Mom, we'll always be together, right?" Her words warmed my heart, and I replied, "Of course. We will always be together." Christina's smile was the greatest strength for me. The days I spent with her were my greatest treasure. Months into our new life, we began to experience more stable days. I found success at work, and Christina enjoyed her school life. As a mother and daughter, we enjoyed our life in the new environment, filled with hope for the future. Each time I realized how truly happy our new life was, I renewed my gratitude toward my grandfather. Without his support, we wouldn't have come this far. His love and support were invaluable to us, and I deeply appreciated him. In this new life, I felt my own strength and growth. Confident that I could build a new future with Christina, I vowed to continue spending happy days with her. Although many challenges still awaited us, I believed in our ability to overcome them. We were determined to live strongly and positively. Our new life had started, and our future was full of infinite possibilities. Together with Christina, cherishing our days spent smiling, we continued to walk toward our new future. One day, when everything seemed to be going well, I suddenly received a call from my ex-husband, David. He was repentant for his past actions and begged to return to us. His words surprised me, but I could sense deep despair behind them. One night, David was waiting in front of our apartment. Cautiously, I approached him and asked coldly, "What are you doing here?" After a long silence and a deep sigh, he said, "Allison, can we start over?" His words made me feel a tightness in my chest. "I haven't forgotten what you did. You betrayed Christina and me and chose a new family," I answered calmly. David admitted, "I understand, but it didn't work out with her. I've lost my job, and nothing is going right." I could see tiredness and regret in his eyes. "It's too late now. Our lives have already changed," I replied firmly. David lowered his head and pleaded, "I'm truly sorry. Please give me another chance," but my heart was unmoved. Remembering the pain and suffering his betrayal had caused, I was certain that I could not go back to him. "I can't trust you anymore, and I won't let you disrupt our lives again," I stated decisively. David seemed deeply hurt by my words but did not give up. "I want to make things right for the family, for Christina," he argued. Christina's name made me hesitate for a moment, but my decision was firm. "For Christina's sake, I need to be strong." "Your return would only hurt her again," I responded calmly. David stood silently, motionless for a while. Eventually, I told him, I think you need to rebuild your own life. We have already moved forward. Despite looking frustrated, he seemed to accept my words. Okay, you're right. Thank you, Allison, he said. Then he walked away. After he left, I returned home and shared the event with Christina. She seemed surprised but relieved that I had rejected David's proposal. Mom, we've been doing fine on our own, she said with a smile. Her words gave me strength again. Moving forward with Christina was my mission, and I was determined to live strongly for her. That night, I contacted my grandfather and told him about David's visit. My grandfather supported my decision and said, Allison, you did well. Continue to build a happy life with Christina. I was deeply grateful for his words and vowed to continue living positively. Our new life was just beginning, and many challenges awaited us, but I believed we had the strength to overcome them all. By rejecting David's plea, we reaffirmed our determination to move forward strongly. Together with Christina, cherishing the days spent smiling, we continued to walk toward our new future. A few days after the encounter with David, our life gradually returned to tranquility, and Christina and I resumed our new routine. However, the incident with David still lingered in the back of my mind, and we couldn't completely escape its impact. One day, when Christina returned home from school, she was excited and said, Mom, I drew a picture at school today. She showed me the drawing, which depicted me, Christina, and my grandfather, all holding hands and smiling. The moment I saw it, tears welled up. I was deeply moved by how Christina had established our new family in her heart. That night I told Christina, I will always be with you, no matter what happens. We are family, she smiled and replied, Yes, Mom, I'm fine, because you're here at that moment. I realized again the need to be strong. For Christina, I was determined to overcome any difficulties. Yet David contacted me again, this time by phone. He apologized once more and pleaded for another chance. Allison, I'm truly sorry. Can we start over? His voice was more earnest than before. I listened in silence, but my mind was already made up. David, I accept your apology, but our relationship cannot be repaired. Christina and I have a new life, and I cannot forgive your actions, I responded quietly. He persisted, For Christina's sake, please reconsider. But I firmly declined. For Christina's sake, we cannot continue any relationship with you. After a prolonged silence, David finally spoke, sounding resigned. I see. I understand. Your decision is firm, I responded firmly. Yes, this is the best choice for us then. Before hanging up, David added, Please take care of Christina. After the call, I sat down for a while, overwhelmed by complex emotions. Ending the relationship with David was a tough decision, but it was necessary for Christina's and my future. That night, I called my grandfather to discuss the phone call with David. He supported my decision, encouraging me, Allison, you made the right choice. Keep living strongly with Christina. His words gave me strength again. The next morning, as Christina and I had breakfast, I embraced a renewed resolve to protect our life and face any challenges. For Christina, I was prepared to live strongly. Our final separation from David symbolized a new beginning. With his relationship conclusively ended, I was free to move forward without being held back by the past. While cherishing our life with Christina, we continued to march towards the future. Our new life still held many challenges, but I believed in our ability to overcome them. With my grandfather's support and Christina's smile as my greatest motivations, we could live positively. In conclusion, the separation from David symbolized our strength and growth. I vowed to continue building a happy life with Christina, believing in a bright and hopeful future, and we stepped forward.